Hey everybody, this is Hengist here, back with another video. I noticed after I posted those previous videos about 4.0, I started getting some people subscribing to me and after the patch launch, so I'm going to stick to my word and make some more videos. This one's going to be about the Feral PvP spec. Now, for those of you that don't know much about Feral, perhaps you just, you haven't really given them any attention. Just a little history. They only started really showing up towards the tail end of the Burning Crusade as a tank class. When Wrath of the Lich King launched, the tanks were pretty much on par with the other specs, but Cat wasn't. It was recognized as a hybrid DPS spec, but not really fully appreciated for what it was. And when 4.0 launched, the Feral Druid really stepped onto the scene as a PvP adversary. And it's probably one of the best, if not the best, one-on-one specs in the game right now. And that's because of a bunch of different things I'm going to be talking about in this video. The primary one being that the healing has changed significantly because of the changes to stats. Armor penetration and critical strike, armor penetration and attack power have been converted to critical strike and haste. On top of that, Ferals have a lot more agility than they did before, which makes, if you pay attention to the tree, makes them very viable healers, which you can see me doing right there in that video. The other notable changes I'm going to talk about are specific to the talents that have been changed. Now, if you're a beginner or you're just starting out as a Feral Druid, this may be not the best video for you because I'm just going to be going over the major changes. Speaking as though you already have a basic understanding of how Feral PvP works, or maybe you're just looking to be entertained, I don't know. But we're going to start off with the changes made to Predatory Strikes. Now, this talent is essentially, after you use a finishing move, it gives you a high probability, if not 100%, of getting an instant cast on your next balance or restoration spell. Depending on your adversary, you want to be using this on a regrowth pretty much any time it procs. Now, of course, that's a very situational statement, and you want to be using it with caution. Shifting in and out of cat form isn't always a good idea, or bear form for that instance. But yeah, that's really gonna jumpstart our healing, and it hasn't changed since before the patch. But like I said, it's just with the amount of agility we have now and the crit, our heals are just that much more valuable. The next changes are made to Heart of the Wild. Now, this talent hasn't changed either, but it has been moved to the Restoration tree. Now, kind of the same thing with Predatory Strikes. It's just a lot more valuable now that you take this talent. Before, you had to, heal yourself 5 times to get to full health. That's not the case in 4.0. I kind of heal like Ret Paladin, so you need to take that talent. The next one is Stampede. Now, this isn't a talent that I've taken in my current spec, but it is entirely a new talent. We took out, to get this talent, Blizzard exchanged it for Primal Precision, I believe is what it was called, that increased your passive expertise rating. We don't have that anymore. Instead, we have Stampede, which after you Feral Charge in bear form, it's going to give you a substantial amount of burst damage, both in your white hits and your rage generation. In cat form, it gives you a free Feral Charge, and it also enables you to use Ravage 10 seconds after that Feral Charge. Now, that's a terrific talent if you're maybe ganking lobies or attacking people in a world PvP scenario that don't have any resilience. But other than that, you don't really want to be ravaging anybody unless you're using it for a finishing move, which, it's very situational, but I decided not to take it because it's not all that useful in battlegrounds or an arena or even a duel, really. Okay, and the next change made after Stampede was our new ability, the long-awaited Feral Druid Interrupt, known as Skull Bash. Now, you can use this in cat form or bear form. It has a default cooldown of 60 seconds, 1 minute. And what it does is it's kind of like an intercept with a much shorter range. It has a 13-yard range, so I mean, they've been tweaking that a little bit, what have you, but essentially what it does is it just interrupts the spell being cast, and it will also lock that opponent out of that school of magic for 5 seconds. So it's not going to have any effect if you're not using it to interrupt a cast. However, it does help you close quarters on a hunter or a mage, what have you. 13-yard range. Not really like a charge or an intercept, but it's very useful. Now, I mentioned the default cooldown was 60 seconds. We'll get to that in a second. But here, this is important. You definitely want to make a macro for this ability. Now, the macro I've created is listed below. It's very simple. All it does is it replaces the necessity to have both the bear form and the cat form skull bash on your bar at any given time. You just need one. Now you hit that action bar, or excuse me, you hit that key when you need it, and it will use the respective skull bash, whether or not you're in bear form or you're in cat form. It's very useful, and it's definitely something you need to do if you're going to be competitively PvP. Now, the biggest and most imperative talent for Feral Druids these days is Brutal Impact. Still has all of its previous bonuses to the Pounce and the Bash abilities that we had previously. But this time, now that we have a new ability, it decreases the cooldown of your Skull Bash ability by 25 seconds per point you put in Brutal Impact. So with 2 points, you get a 50-second decrease in your cooldown for Skull Bash. That is just invaluable. You can't stress that enough. You need to take this talent. And it also grants the Spell Bash ability an extra component which causes the next spell being cast by the target to have the mana cost of that next ability increased by 30%. So what you're finding these days is you'll see Feral Druids going toe-to-toe with a healer, for instance, in a duel. And they don't have Mortal Strike, so they don't necessarily have the capacity to kill that healer, but they can easily run them out of mana by doing this every 10 seconds. Now you may think that's just a minuscule gain or whatever, but keep in mind when they get locked out for 5 seconds, they're going to panic as soon as they're able to cast spells again, and they're going to be overcompensating for heals, etc. Unless you're going against a really strong healer, you should be able to take pretty much any of them down 1v1. It's also going to make Feral Druids much more useful in Arena. Okay, so those are the main changes that I just went over right now. We're going to look at how we can apply that in battle. This time we're going to be doing it in Warsong Gulch here. But before we get into all that, I just want to talk about my channel a little bit and what I'm doing here. So, just to start off, I know a lot of you might be thinking, you know, this guy's a poser, he's just trying to be like Total Biscuit or Jesse Cox, one of those guys. And that's not true at all. If you pay attention to those two characters I just listed, they frequently talk about how they're not the best WoW player, and you know, they don't consider themselves to be any sort of an advice giver. And I'm not saying that, you know, I'm the best player I know, etc. But my videos are going to be more geared towards helping people improve as they play. You know, I'm not interested in filming quests or going over zone areas, things like that. What I am interested in doing is helping people that want help top the charts in a raid as a DPS, or how to prioritize your stats as a tank or healing. You know, a little bit of background about me. This is my main character, Hengist. He's a druid. I play Feral for the most part, tank and DPS, but I also heal very often, and I do balance from time to time. And I have quite a bit of experience in other classes as well, but my druid is kind of just, you know, he's my bread and butter. I do play a mage, a hunter, a warrior, a priest. But the reason I'm making these videos, sorry, I'm getting kind of sidetracked, is because a buddy of mine asked me to take a part in a project of ours, where we're going to make a website, and just put up a collaboration of a bunch of different class reviews for all of the WoW classes, you know, like, not necessarily reviews, but, you know, reporting changes as they happen, kind of like this, or just giving advice on how to really play your character. And with that said, we're not trying to crunch numbers like elitist jerks, or I don't know what other websites are out there where they just a bunch of math equations. In fact, I don't plan on doing any of that. What I do plan on doing is giving you practical situation advice. So, PvP, for example, you know, the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is trying to open up or execute a perfect PvE rotation on another player. And it just doesn't work because there's no way you can predict what a player's going to do. You need to react in real time. There's no DBM to help you. Hey, this character's about to use Hammer of Righteous on you. I hope your trinket's on cooldown. Something like that, It's just realism. That's what I'm kind of going for here. And if you don't like it, that's fine. I'm just doing this for fun. I'm not looking for attention or any of that. I said, yeah, I'll help you out with your website, and I enjoy playing WoW. I love to make videos, video editing, all that stuff. And I consider myself to be a pretty good public speaker as well. So, maybe this will work out, maybe it won't. Either way, it's fun for me. So that's kind of just the summary of what I'm doing here. Now, I do plan on releasing a series of videos relatively soon. First starting out with how to raid as a feral DPS, and then maybe we'll go into the 3 trees of the mage. I'm a big advocate for the frost mage these days, and now that it's actually viable in PvE, it's very exciting. I'll go into the warrior as well. But for now, I just want to open up with this video. It's kind of entertaining. You get to see me owning some people. I don't think I die in this battleground. And this is my best performance that, I just fraps at random battlegrounds. But you can see, like, this paladin, he knows what's up. He's handing off the flag to Hangest here. Because I don't know if you know, but feral druids in PvP gear are very, very fast. I just got sapped right there. And pay attention to this upcoming scene here. These 3 horde just come out of nowhere. Right? It's like, look at that. They just appear out of nowhere. And I try to make a sweet little getaway here, and I think I succeed. Just hang on. Yeah. A valiant sacrifice by that ret back there. I managed to get away. And that's something that a lot of people take for granted in a battleground. Oftentimes when people judge a player, they look at the killing blows or the damage done. But things like that, where you just make a strategic getaway, or you're just a real good team player, people just overlook. So I know all you guys, I know you're out there, the guys that just flame on the person at the bottom of the killing blows chart. It's, you guys need to appreciate everything that all your teammates do. And I'm not saying that everyone is a positive contribution to a battleground, but there's so much hatred that goes on in these things, and it's just frustrating. So just try to be more aware of that, Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked again. I apologize. Now, you may have noticed by now that I do a fair amount of clicking in my combat. And yeah, there are people out there that would look at that and say, man, look at this noob. He's clicking, he doesn't have hotkeys, etc., etc. And just to clarify, I have hotkeyed all of my abilities at one time, and I decided I didn't like it. So you'll notice that I click like my forms, changing forms, what else? Certain abilities like dash, things like that, and let me explain my philosophy behind this. It's because your left hand always needs to be doing something when you're in combat, It's the hand that's on the keyboard, and your right hand is on the mouse, obviously, unless you're left-handed, in which case it's vice versa. And you want to keep your reaction skills, you want to keep them available. When you're in the middle of a motion on the keyboard, you may notice something on the screen that you need to react to faster than the amount of time it takes you to push one button or the other, right? So that's why you leave the option to click something open. So even I'll click hotkeys sometimes that I have memorized since the day I started playing WoW, just because it's more convenient. So that's something that maybe, people are doing all hotkeys because of some kind of a stigma that's attached to the game about clicking. But I'll just explain that, so that is definitely something that some people can improve upon.